Out of all of the AUs I've done so far, this has to be one of my favorite. Not only because it's one of my favorite animes, but it's also well written. So continuing forward, this AU takes place after the Hashira's fight with Muzan. The Demon Slayer Corps finally got the piece they've been fighting for, and then out of nowhere, a mysterious infection breaks out. After finally defeating the demons, none of the Hashira know where this came from or how it spreads. So of course, to prevent another tragedy that's threatening to take out mankind itself, Shinobu begins creating daily antidotes and medicine to keep the others from getting infected. And in this AU, the remaining Hashira and Slayers work together to find the source and stop the outbreak before it destroys what Muzan couldn't. So the AU starts off by showing us an abundance of character profiles, starting off with Mitsuri, who right now is more worried about her hair that was cut off during her battle with Muzan, and she's not really happy about it because she can't put it in braids no longer. Other than that, she's still kicking it, not infected, and doing really good with her health. And that brings us to Michiro, who's just said to be doing alright. Now in the story, he's the youngest of the Hashira and has been through a lot for his age, so this infection is not really gonna bother him that much. As of now, to his understanding, he's seen worse. Going on to Giyu, he's unfortunately been bit in one of his eyes by one of the infected, but even still, he's mainly worried more about Shinobu instead of himself, as she's been working tireless nights with not a lot of breaks, and he just wants her to take more care of herself. Then there's Shinobu. As you can see, she's been working very hard on these antidotes for the others. Anyone that knows anything about Demon Slayer know that the Hashiras care more about anybody than themselves. And Shinobu in the series has made antidotes and medicines to combat and weaken demons or cure demon related poison effects. Tanjiro, of course, is by his sister Nezuko's side and is worried about her getting infected, and of course hopes the others won't, but is more protective of his sister, who's just a little girl. Zenitsu has been looking after Nezuko because he likes her a lot. Now, judging by how down bad he is when it comes to women, who's surprised? Inosuke's doing great. He doesn't like taking the antidote, but he does it anyways, it says. Genya is just worried about his brother and his friends, of course. Next, Kanao is said to be worried about her sister Shinobu the most because of how hard she's been working. Nezuko's also worried about everyone else, and even Tengen is kinda upset about all of this because he just wants to lay down and live a peaceful life, but this came up out of nowhere. Sanemi has actually apologized to Genya for being so hard on him and rough, and just wants everyone to stay safe. He was hard on Genya because he really didn't want him to join the Demon Slayer Corps. And finally, Guillaume is praying that everybody stays safe, while Obanai hasn't been eating at all and is hoping that Mitsuri can stay safe as well. Now, continuing forward, things start to pick up as Tanjiro is called to Shinobu's office and basically told to give out these antidotes that she's made for everybody. So he says, okay, Miss Kocho, and starts handing the antidotes out to people like Nezuko, Zenitsu, Inosuke, etc. And then it gets to a point where we see what Shinobu's actually up to while Tanjiro is fulfilling this task, and then we're shown that she has Rengoku, who's seems like he's been infected and very badly injured, quarantined in some sort of room after getting found in the woods by Tanjiro and Mitsuri. That's when she says something very interesting, saying, I thought that he was dead. It's possible that this disease works on dead people as well. You and I seen Rengoku pass away in one of the saddest scenes of the anime. So if there's anything good that comes from this disease, hopefully it's that Rengoku can be cured and be living again. But anyways, continuing forward, at the end of the day, after Tanjiro's done giving the rest of the antidotes out, he finally rests. And when he woke the next morning, he realized that his sleep didn't feel right. And sooner or later, bad news is broken to him by Genya, saying that Mitsuri is missing Tanjiro, and I haven't seen her all morning, and Obanai can't find her either. You were giving out the antidote, so you must go to the last spot that you seen her. So then Tanjiro agrees to go revisit, but for some reason doesn't find anyone over there. And after searching all day for her, by the nighttime they kinda give up on it and just hope that she's okay. And then it cuts to Shinobu that night, who's been working in the lab, saying that I've been working on all these antidotes and now Mitsuru's missing? And then she hears something like glass breaking. And of course goes investigates. And while she's running over there, she sees Mitsuri, who's all bloodied up and doesn't look the same as she did yesterday when she got the antidote. And as she lunges at Shinobu, it then cuts to a scene where she's in one of the labs quarantined off, sitting there, and Open Eyes looking at her through the window, worried. Later that night, before Tanjiro goes to bed, he goes and checks up on Shinobu because he does get a little worried about her. And then they meet, and he notices that her arm is missing, and he asks, "Miss Kocho, what happened to your arm?" And tells him, "Mitsuri was infected and bit my arm, so I had to cut it off before my whole body was infected." So we know that similar to a lot of zombie apocalypse, if you cut off or amputate one of your arms or legs or limbs, that you're basically almost safe from the virus if you do it in time. And then she tells Tanjiro to make sure he visually sees them take the antidote because she's not really sure if Mitsuri took it or not. And so when they go inside, Tanjiro's expecting to see Mitsuri, but instead he sees Obanai in the room hugging infected Mitsuri, and then eventually he gets infected as well after saying, "I won't let you die alone." Of course, Tanjiro and Shinobu can't believe what they're seeing, and they're like, "We gotta go in there and help." But Shinobu's like, "We can't." And Tanjiro's like, "Why?" And she just says, "It's too late." So he's officially quarantined, and we don't know what's gonna happen to him after this. Now, after that, it goes to Kanao's room, who's talking to herself, saying, "I hope they don't find out." And then right before she says the next word, Shinobu comes in as she checks up on her to see if she's okay from time to time. And that's when Kanao asks out of nowhere, "What happened to your arm?" And Shinobu just tells her, "It's a long story. I just came to check up on you." And that's when she notices that something's wrong with Konoha's arm. And she just tells her, I'm fine. And obviously she's not. She's bitten and she's infected somehow. And Shinobu's like, "How did you get infected? What?" That's when she says, "You might be upset about this, but Aoi, who's a caretaker and demon slayer, and known for being a medic in this series, was out one day with Konoha and other girls to get some food. Konoha was sitting on the bench waiting for them to come out of the store, and they didn't come up the store for a long time. So that's when she went searching for them and found Aoi, and when she went close to her, that's when she got bitten and found out that she was somehow infected. And this all happened because Shinobu forgot to give them antidotes. This was days ago, and Konoha has been fighting the infection off somehow and told Shinobu that she's no longer going to be able to do it for too long. That's when Shinobu's like, no, I can give you an antidote. And Konoha's just like, nah, it's too late. I'm sorry. Personally, I don't know why she wouldn't ask for an antidote, but the only reason I can come up with was that she didn't want to stress out Shinobu too much, and plus the fact that she can fight it off, all were good enough reasons on why she wasn't asking for help. But anyways, the next day, Tanjiro shows up in front of Shinobu asking, "So where's Konoha?" Basically, Shinobu's like, "I'm sorry to say this, but she has been infected." And Tanjiro's basically fed up at this point, asking, "We're stronger than them. How are we getting infected? I don't get it. Is there some airborne disease going around?" But Shinobu doesn't even know the answer to that. And then Tanjiro goes back to Nezuko to check up on her, and a little funny scene happens where Zenitsu's just like tells him, "Yeah, she's okay. But nah, you're not gonna disturb her. She's sleeping." Telling her own brother that he can't check up on his sister is hilarious. So now in the next part, it's been a couple of hours probably, and Tanjiro pulls back up to Shinobu's place and finds out that she's not even there. So he goes around asking people like Genya and Muchiro, and they're basically like, "No, we haven't seen her," and also asking him, "How's his sister doing?" Nezuko has been sleeping in the bed for a while, but clearly something is up with her, and we don't know it yet. Meanwhile, Shinobu has been out and about for the first time in a while after making antidotes day and night for everyone every day, and runs into Giyu, who asks how she's doing, and that's when he starts to notice, "Where's your arm?" And she says, "It's been a long story, alright?" And that's when he asks, "Okay, so why didn't you patch it up yet?" And she just says, "I forgot." And that night we're shown that Shinobu doesn't make it home. Where is Shinobu? Letting us know that something bad is about to happen. And that night, Tanjiro goes and returns to Shinobu's place to see if she has came home, and she hasn't. But for some reason, Zenitsu's there, and Tanjiro's like, "What are you doing here?" And he's like, I came here to ask Shinobu for something. Tanjiro's like, what could that something be? And Zenitsu's like, don't worry about it, mind your business, basically. And Tanjiro just says, alright, I haven't seen her since last night. We'll find her in the morning, I guess. And Zenitsu agrees. Meanwhile, Shinobu that night is actually looking for something, saying that they broke out. And it seems at this point, Guillaume is around her as well, saying something doesn't feel right. And that's when out of nowhere, an infected being shows up looking very familiar. Genya and Michiro were somehow infected, and the disease itself morphed them into one like a fusion. And right before Guillaume can put them down, Shinobu intervenes, saying, no, wait, stop, I'll handle them. That's when in the next scene, we've seen that they were quarantined, and they start talking about them, with Guillaume saying, what happened to them? Why are they stitched up? Where have they been? And Shinobu lets him know straight up that she found their bodies sliced up and decided to stitch them both together to kinda keep them alive, I guess. So now we must know who sliced them up and what happened. We know it's not Giyu because Shinobu says that she's been with Giyu the whole day. It wasn't Tanjiro or Guillaume, but it had to be one of the Hashira. So the next day, Tanjiro wakes up and finally sees Shinobu for the first time in a while, and of course asks where she's been, and she breaks the news to him right away, saying that Michiro and Genya were infected and they broke out, so she had to go find them, and Guillaume was out helping her. And of course Tanjiro, after hearing that 2 more of his friends got infected, said, I'm gonna get to the bottom of this disease once and for all. And Shinobu lets him know that you will. You'll find out very soon. And when he asks what she's talking about, she just says nothing. We don't know what she's talking about, but she's definitely hiding something. Now in the next part, Nezuko has finally awoken and she thanks Zenitsu for the medicine and asks, where's Tanjiro? And he says that he's taking a nap, and eventually Nezuko goes to Tanjiro and sees that he's awake. And Tanjiro asks, oh, you're up, and is surprised and also asks, where's Zenitsu? And she says, oh, him? He's taking a nap. Meanwhile, Shinobu, who's been acting very weird, is back at her place, and Tanjiro comes in asking, can we talk? I want to see how the infected are doing. And Shinobu tells him, they were doing alright, at least, but not anymore. And Tanjiro says, what do you mean not anymore? What happened? And Shinobu straight up tells him the infected died. Mitsuri, Obadai, Genya, Michiro, Rengoku, Guillaume, and the others gone. And that's when Tanjiro just straight up loses it, saying, Guillaume, you just said that you guys were together. And Shinobu lets him know that, yeah, he had a scratch on his neck, so he got infected. And that's when Tanjiro says, wow, I'm so confused. And basically says, you've been acting so weird. You're not making any sense. You're being confusing, and you're just not telling me the truth. Like you're scared to say it. Answer me. And then Shinobu says, you really want to know the truth? And Tanjiro's like, yes. And she says, all right, follow me. And so they walk to the woods, and that's when Tanjiro's shown a weird looking corpse that is Shinobu's. He's like, what the freak? Shinobu? What if that's Shinobu, then who are you? And as he looks back at Shinobu, the truth reveals itself, saying, you really thought I was Shinobu, didn't you? I knew humans were so dumb. It's actually funny. If you're wondering what I am, I'm a doppelganger. I'm the only one left of them, so I decided to start an infection so no one will be human anymore. Then I found out that Shinobu found a cure to stop the infection, so I killed her and hid her and copied her looks, her voice, so I can trick all of you. But you found out. I started to notice that you were onto me, so I decided to kill all the infected in the lab. It basically calls Tanjiro smart before threatening to end him right there on the spot. And right before she could even attack, the shot goes off. And it was from Zenitsu. And Tanjiro yells out, Zenitsu? You killed her. Thank you. And then they notice on the ground near Shinobu's real body that the real medicine, the cure to all of this disease, is sitting right there. And that's when they go up and take a good look at the doppelganger body, who looks very disturbing. And Tanjiro says, well, at least it's all over. We're gonna leave the body here and just deal with it tomorrow. And they walk off, leaving it in the woods. And as it sits there its eyes eventually move and a shadow appears over it. It turns out there's another doppelganger creature in which takes on Shinobu's sister's body that was in the graveyard and is gonna be using it to get rid of Tanjiro and the rest of the people. And it seems like it wants the other doppelganger's help, as it threatens to kill it if it doesn't help him. And this just lets us know automatically that these doppelgangers do not get along. The next day, we're shown Giyu and Sanemi talking, and basically what happens is that Giyu's just getting Sanemi up to date, who's always out of the loop, and told him that basically most of the Slayers are dead, including his brother. But they found the cure, which is the good part. In the morning, Zenitsu and Tanjiro show up to greet Nezuko, who's still at home and safe, and to their knowledge, they basically have saved the day. They're about to go out and give the cure out to everyone, and this is pretty much a very happy scene. And that's when the music that was playing shuts off, and Tanjiro side eyes and looks at Zenitsu and says, "Go get Shinobu's body." And Zenitsu's like, "What? She's dead." And he's like, "No, she should be alive." Now, before the story basically continues on forth with the next plot, they give us some character information. We're shown Nezuko and Tanjiro's age and health, which they're doing great. Nyx, who looks super horrifying, has an unknown age, and the body that they're using is at 40% health. If you didn't know, Shinobu's sister sadly passed away while fighting an upper rank demon, and I'm not sure if their body was actually at a graveyard in the regular series because I'm pretty sure they were eaten after their death, but that's pretty sad if Shinobu sees this taking over her sister's body like this. Then we see the doppelganger who started the whole infection in the first place is named Dixie. Their age is unknown and they're at a low HP and health at 25. Then we see that Zenitsu's body is cut in half, his health is unknown, and his face is even covered, and letting us know that when he goes to get the body, he might not come back alive. So that night in the woods, the doppelgangers, Nyx and Dixie are talking to each other, and you can see that they have some sort of weird relationship or past, and Dixie just straight up eats Shinobu's body, and that's when they hear something coming and they decide to hide. And it turns out to be Zenitsu, who came to retrieve the body but notices it's not there and says, "No, it has to be here somewhere." And back at Tanjiro's place, he's sitting there with Nezuko and he's getting a little bit worried about where Zenitsu's at and how long it's taking for him to get back. So he decides to end up going looking for him with Nezuko, and back in the forest, we see that Zenitsu actually got into a fight with them. And as he's sitting there, Nyx is just bragging about it, saying, "Oh, poor little thing, he would still be alive if he didn't come alone." And that's when Dixie's like, "All right, I'm out of here." And then Nyx straight up just rips off their face and says, "The next time you betray me, I'm gonna do what I just did now to your whole skin." And later that night, sooner or later, Tanjiro actually finds Zenitsu, who possibly could still be alive and is recovering in the hospital bed. And so later that night, continuing forward, Nezuko goes on and checks on Zenitsu and notices that Tanjiro is nowhere in the building after checking the final room, and then decides to leave for some reason. And while she's roaming the village alone, she sees Konoha and says, "Konoha, is that you?" And of course, we already know that she's infected, and as you can see by her face, this is no longer Konoha. And so as Nezuko tries to run, she trips and falls, and she has to think fast because she's literally going to get infected and blitzed in a second. And even says, "I have to get up before I..." A sword is stabbed through Konoha's chest, and it was actually Giyu, who says, "Why are you out here alone, Nezuko? Didn't your brother say it's too dangerous?" And then she says, "Yes, I know." And Inosuke comes out of nowhere and says, "Yo." And Giyu's like, "Where have you been all of this time?" And he's like, "Don't yell at me. I got lost in the woods and an old lady invited me to her place and gave me food." And that's when Giyu says, "All right, anyways, we should just go now. Tanjiro found something. And oh, we should take Konoha because we could probably cure her as well." And so Nezuko sits with Konoha, who's finally gotten the cure and is just sitting there patched up and not moving, not really saying anything either. And meanwhile, while that's going on, it turns out Dixie was actually caught by Tanjiro and Giyu and has gotten tied up for questioning. And it turns out Dixie's trying to appeal to them, acting like a good guy, but of course they don't trust this doppelganger thing, and it starts saying, "This is ridiculous. I gave y'all's memories back. I won't help you now unless you untie me." And Tanjiro claps back by saying, "We're gonna kill you if you don't. Now tell us about this Nyx thing you were talking about." And as it sits there and says, "Ah, fine," from outside the door, you can see that Nezuko is sitting and listening. So then Dixie goes on to explain the lore about the doppelgangers. So it turns out Nyx is a strong, creepy, terrifying version of the doppelgangers, and there used to be more of them. And Nyx basically got rid of all of them after being disrespected and challenged by them until there was only 2 of them left, Nyx and Dixie. And Dixie would be spared by Nyx if only they completed one quest, which was to defeat the Demon Slayer corpse at the time within 30 days. And so that's what Dixie did. They released a disease that would weaken them and eventually get rid of them. But the only problem was Shinobu. She was too smart and was creating a cure, so she was forced to kill Shinobu and create fake antidotes and gave them to other Demon Slayers so that things could get worse. And one night, Dixie accidentally found Nyx along a waterfall, and seeing that they were very weak and they don't know how, they don't know why, but they took the chance and pushed them off the cliff. Dixie then goes on and says, "I hate them. Creatures like us don't trust. We despise one another and never get along, and I thought Nyx died, but they somehow survived. And now I'm here, and I only have a few days left to finish the mission and get rid of every single one of you or I'm gone." And then they go on and say, "I don't care about the mission anymore. I just want to get rid of that thing, and even if it means teaming with my enemies." Dixie also lets them know that they would be dead if it wasn't for the fact that it would be too boring to take them out easily, and that they wanted to do it a different way so that it's more entertaining or fun. And later that night, Tanjiro has a dream that Nezuko got infected while he was walking through the halls that night. Dixie's story kind of reminds me of the Marvel Cinematic Universe character Nebula's, who was being sent on quests by her father Thanos, who obviously was committing mass murder, and Nebula ended up switching up on him and trying to fight back against him, even if it meant teaming up with the enemies. Anyways, the next day Nezuko ends up interacting with Dixie through the window, saying, "Well, since you and Tanjiro became friends, I forgive you," and starts saying things like, "You're not gonna infect or kill any of us anymore, right?" But Dixie doesn't want to be friends at all and just wants to be left alone. And after that, Nezuko leaves and sees that Konoha is finally awake and doing fine. And so eventually Nezuko has a plan that we don't really know yet and wants Dixie to help with it, and goes in there and starts poking the doppelganger excessively until it decided to say yes to the plan. And it turns out, as crazy as this might sound, Nezuko is suspicious of her brother Tanjiro and wants Dixie to transform into Nezuko to spy on him. And Dixie's surprised by this, saying that, "You want me to transform into you because you find Tanjiro suspicious, your brother?" And Nezuko's like, "Yes, I know it's a very weird request, but he's been acting weird. Can you just do this for me? That's what friends do, right?" And then Dixie says, "Certainly, untie me." And so they end up merging, and Nezuko's like, "Oh, why do I look like this?" And then Dixie says, "I forgot to tell you, your appearance changes when I merge with you. It shows that I'm inside your body." Then Nezuko responds saying, "Isn't there a way that you can hide yourself?" And then Dixie says, "No, I can't." And Nezuko's like, "The plan is ruined then." Dixie says, "Sorry, I'm not going anywhere." So later that night, Tanjiro eventually did find out. We don't really see the scene when she breaks it to him, but he just starts going in on her, saying, "Why would you do something so dumb?" And then it shows us later where Nezuko is just angry at Dixie, saying, "You're the worst." That's when Inosuke comes out of nowhere saying, "What happened to you?" and starts laughing, saying, "You look ugly." And that's when Dixie gets angry and punches him in the face. And as his body flops to the ground, Nezuko's like, "What's wrong with you? What are you doing?" And Nezuko ended up crying herself to sleep that night and couldn't really even get sleep anyways because she has a whole doppelganger creature in her. Now the next day, Sanemi runs into her and starts going in saying, "What did you do?" And Nezuko's like, "Me?" And he's like, "No, you." And basically Dixie responds with, "It's not my fault, it's Nezuko's fault. She did this." And Sanemi starts yelling, saying, "I'm not gonna believe that." And out of nowhere, one of the Slayers come and say that Konoha is missing. Konoha is currently in the woods searching for what it looks like is Aoi, and she tries to say to her when she does find her that, "I can save you, we have a cure, come back with me, I know you're infected," and then gets her head sliced off out of nowhere. And Konoha starts arguing with Dixie because Nezuko was not the one to do this. And she was saying, "Why did you do that? We could have cured her." And Dixie's like, "No, she was gonna kill you." But Konoha didn't care. She said, "Look, we could have cured her." And that's when Dixie says, the cure was not gonna work because she's been infected for way too long. And then Kanoa says, we could have still saved her somehow. And she just gets called dumb by Dixie. And then they return home, and as Nezuko's sitting there at night, it's getting late and she's about to probably go to bed. She ends up throwing up some black substance, and she doesn't really know what's wrong with her. And when she asks Dixie what was going on, she says, oh, this happens and I'll explain it later. So clearly Dixie's not on their side. They're deliberately doing things to prevent people from being cured and still being the bad guy, smiling throughout all of this. Most of you guys be forgetting to subscribe and you're going to miss out on the next part, so make sure to do that because this AU is still not over yet and I still will be doing updates. Thank you for watching this video. It takes a while to edit. God bless all of you people. Peace.